What is the crack, everyone? It's Nathan here, aka the Rambling Kern, and head instructor of Kern School of Combat. So today's video is a little bit of a response video, but it is also part 3 in a series on the Irish longbow. So if you want to go back and watch part 1 and 2 to get some reference into what I'm discussing here, please go back and have a look at those. It'll give you a bit more context to what I'm discussing. But for those who are specifically interested in the later examples that I found, this is the video for you. So I'll get showing the examples first and then I'll start discussing them. So we have 3 examples. I'm going to just refer to these through the classification numbers that were given to them. And then one example which is referred to by the place it was found. So we have 3 examples and these are different to the other ones. So I'm not saying, and I want this made clear off the bat, I'm not saying that there's an unbroken bowyer tradition in Ireland spanning thousands of years. I'm saying that there seems to be specific design considerations in Ireland for whatever reason, and eyelets seem to be a thing that just keeps popping up over and over and over. I was first made aware of these later examples prior to being aware of the Bronze Age examples. And when I start to refer to the term Irish longbow, I'm talking about that 700-year period in the Bronze Age specifically, because that to me is the tradition where it comes from. But anyway, we have 3 examples. We have DWP1, which is a Hiberno Norse example. This was found in and around Dublin. We have example number 2, which is DWP4. It's somewhere in the late 10th to mid 12th century. So Anglo Norman example. And we have the Adair Castle bow. This bow has since been lost, but we do have the drawings of the bow, and we do know for sure that there was an eyelet in one end, possibly one the other end, but the other end seems to have broken off, so we're not really too sure if there was. Now, originally I had seen these examples in this book that I'm going to bring up on screen, which is called Weapons and Warfare in Viking and Medieval Dublin by Andrew Halpin. Andrew Halpin has done just the greatest work when it comes to classification of archery, weapons and warfare in Ireland for the Viking and medieval period. He's done incredible work. I had this book. I've since lost this copy, so if anyone wants to go and look at further detail of these, feel free to go do it. I had wanted to do this video later when I could get hold of the book, but the Irish Museum's website and their store is currently down, so I have no way to see if they have any copies of the book, and I've not been able to go into the museum to actually see if they have any hard copies that I can go and buy. Hopefully over the Christmas period I will do that and get some better pictures for you, because these pictures are photos of a book that I have screenshotted, sent to me by a friend who has a copy of the book. So apologies that the quality is not the best, but you will get the idea of these examples. Now, these examples are different to the Bronze Age ones. I'm not saying that they are the same, but I'm saying there are similarities that pop up, and that is what I find interesting. So in all 3 you have eyelets on them. However, in all of them you do also have a single side knock, which I find quite interesting. This much more leans to the suggestion that these eyelets were some sort of string keeper. So in other words, it allowed for the string to stay on the bow for prolonged periods of time and to be strung in a hurry. This I find quite interesting. Now, I also want to go back and have a quick look at the Adair bow, or the Adair Castle bow. We don't actually know the exact period from which this bow was found. It's probably medieval, but we don't really know. And again, since the bow's been lost, we're not really too sure of the exact specific dates around this bow. But you will notice a very, very interesting bow shape and very interesting bow design for a yew bow. With this extreme recurve shape, which is really not something we see a lot, but it does also lean into the sort of pictures that we see in artwork of Irish and Scottish soldiers with these sort of short recurve bows from the period. So I think this one is really, really fascinating in my opinion. And it's, you know, I'll show different artwork examples so you can actually see examples of this sort of bow popping up. But it seems to be an actual example of these, which to me, like I said, was the thing that started me on this whole journey, and then I found the Bronze Age bows and kind of went from there. So just to cite the original paper from Stephen Lawler, he does mention the Hiberno Norse examples. He discussed with another researcher, Kathy Moore, and she brought those examples up, as well as some Anglo Norman examples. And then the paper within which the Adair Castle one is from Rin Rynne, in 1961. Now, the actual paper is Rynne E 1961. Was Desmond Castle Adair erected on a ring fort? North Munster Antiquarian Journal, Volume 8, Number 4, page 193 to 202. So one of the big issues researching any sort of academic topic is that I am not a researcher. I don't have access to these papers. So if anyone does, please let me know. But it makes doing some of this research for myself, who's more into the practical side of things, quite difficult. And I'm not a researcher or a full-time historian or anything like that. This is more just a hobby, and I'm more interested in the reconstruction of these items rather than being able to go in really in depth. But obviously I want to present you guys with the best accurate information I can. So we do have these three examples. They are quite different to the earlier examples. So like I said at the beginning of the video, I want to make it clear, I'm not saying that there was an unbroken tradition in Ireland. There is a very strange period in Irish history that's well over 1,000 years of Irish history where we don't find any real artifacts around bows at all. However, the period of when these Bronze Age bows were found is about 700 years. Now, to put it in context, if we look at the English war bow, it reached its kind of kick-off point, let's say, in the 13th century, and by the 16th century it had pretty much all but been forgotten, and the use of them had pretty much petered out. Now, that is probably one of the most iconic bows in Europe, and was really only around for kind of 300 to 400 years. So for an Irish bow to appear over a course of 700 years, to me, shows how iconic it is, at least to me, from the practical side of reconstructing these things. And an interesting point I also wanted to bring up is that when we talk about classifying bows, especially, when we say certain terms, it doesn't actually mean a historic term. So sometimes I will say stuff incorrectly, so apologies. But for example, if we discuss the English longbow, often the terms used to describe an English longbow are from Victorian classifications, such as the D shape, cross-section, and various other different things that are referred to in them. We now know, thanks to the Mary Rose find, that a lot of those depictions and information is actually incorrect. A lot of the Mary Rose warbows are very different cross sections, which now helps for modern bowyers to go and actually make these things, which was a big part of why I wanted to share this stuff, because I want to set about making some of these bows and obviously sharing with you guys the actual practical considerations around these bows. One interesting point brought up by Stephen Lawler in this paper is that he does think that there's a strong influence in early research, especially in the early 20th century, that a lot of the influence from Irish sagas and Irish literature on research has kind of put somewhat of a lack of interest into the field of archery. In other words, there's not really many references in Irish literature and Irish mythology. So often it seems to be ignored, one of the reasons why he set about making this paper. Now, a point that he brought up, which I think is very worthwhile, especially as someone like myself who's trying to research this stuff, he brought up the point in his paper that as he was searching through topographical records in the National Museum of Ireland, it revealed the existence of numerous unreported bows. So it is very possible that there's many more bows out there that have not been reported on. From chatting with friends who are archaeologists, often things don't get catalogued properly. Multiple things are found or get stored incorrectly. That there's human error is always going to be a factor, but also when you have a wealth of things and nowhere to store them, this always becomes an issue. So I do hope in the future to put in a request to the museum to have a look and see if I can find any more examples, and obviously I'll share it with you as I go, but that will be a long and ongoing process. But he does note that with the ones that he had found during his own research, that he did find some of these distinctive features that I've talked about on the Bronze Age bows, the furrows and the eyelets. And I think the furrows and the eyelets of the Bronze Age bows are really what fascinates me the most. They are not something seen elsewhere at any other time period. And I really do find them absolutely fascinating. So I'll bring them up again on screen. The three examples I talked about, the Hiberno Norse version, the Anglo Norman version, and the find from Adair Castle. Now, all three of these bows I find fascinating. Like I said, once again, this I don't think really shows an unbroken tradition of bow making in Ireland, but what it definitely does highlight is that there is specific considerations going on in Ireland that means that an eyelet seems to be a preferable thing on a bow. Why that is, I don't know. There's obviously some sort of practical consideration, perhaps due to terrain or climate or some other reason that I don't know. Perhaps they just wanted to have the strings stored on the bow, perhaps just to quickly draw them and quickly get the bow ready to shoot. Maybe it leans into what we know of later periods where the Irish were very well known for ambushes. Maybe that's more the practical consideration. Maybe these are more just hunting weapons and they wanted to be able to string them quickly to hunt with them. Again, I don't really know, but there is obviously a practical or maybe even cultural reason behind this. Why that is, I don't know, but that's part of why I want to reconstruct them. So like I said, the first bow I ever found from this was when I actually bought the book itself when it first came out. And my goal initially during this whole process was to find some information on the Adair Castle bow and try to recreate that. Unbeknownst to me, I found all of the amazing research done by Stephen Lawler on the Bronze Age bows, and that sent me down this rabbit hole. So enough rambling on this topic. I know this is a 3-part series. It has gone on, and there's going to be plenty more, like I said, but I really wanted to address the discussions around this. Obviously, I am just standing here rambling to a camera. I don't sometimes remember to say all of the things that I showed in the video. That's why I've been making sure to write scripts for these, because there is important notes that you guys will pick up on or that I'll forget to mention. And obviously it is very important for you guys to get all the accurate information from me. So what do you guys think? I honestly think these 3 later examples are absolutely fascinating. I think these indicate to a different sort of logic than the Bronze Age bows, but obviously there is some sort of practical consideration going on here, and why that is, I don't know. Also, the possibility of future bows that have not been documented or not been photographed or shared with the public, I think is really fascinating and something I'd really love to go and try to have a look at. So what do you guys think? And what do you guys think of these 3 examples? Let me know down in the comments. If there's anything else you would like to see in the series, let me know. If you're following me on social media, you will have seen some of the bows I'm currently working on. I'm working on a board bow and a flat bow at the moment, which hopefully I'll have some videos on those over the holidays, but this will likely be the last video from me for this year. So just a huge thank you to everyone. The channel has grown immensely over the past even month, so I just really can't thank everyone enough. I really want to grow this channel. I want to share Irish history with everyone and share these practical sides of it, and your support just really means the world to me. If you're interested in supporting my work further, you'll find my Patreon down in the description. I will be sharing a introduction to Irish stick fighting course on there in the next week or so. So if you're interested in that, you'll find everything down there. You'll also have opportunities to train with me online, and you'll also find information for my classes, which I do every week in South Dublin. So thank you all so much. If I don't see you in the meantime, have a wonderful holiday with whatever you celebrate. Thank you so much, and slán.